You're still under oath, Mr. Fresco?
Yes, my lady.
Yes, Mr. Roux.
Thank you, my lady. Mr. Fresco, for purposes of this afternoon now, what I'm going to do, I'm first going to deal with the sunroof incident and then with the Tasha's incident after that. During the adjournment, I looked at the evidence of Miss Taylor, and I've already referred to one part, but this is the second part of her evidence, and I quote, "The shot was fired because they," and we know that you and Mr. Pistorius were angry at the police, and they found it very funny to irritate the police, if that makes sense. That's the quote. What do you say about that?
Definitely not, my lady.
And then, as to the timing, she says, and I quote, "Because I remember it being shortly after we left the police."
Definitely not, my lady.
I'm trying to understand how it is that you have two people in a car that can differ so dramatically about when and where and why the shot was allegedly fired. Can you assist us?
My testimony is the truth, my lady. That's what I remember.
Yes. Can you remember where the shot was fired?
The roundabout vicinity that I had shown Detective Van Aert and the photographer.
But can you remember where it was?
From what I remember, it was right after the robots at that intersection. I had taken Detective Van Aert up, and he was driving. I was passenger. I had asked him to please drive me up and down the area a few times.
So it was not that you could take him straight to the place?
No, I could not.
And after a few times, how did you pick that spot?
I do remember the area that it had happened in.
But
I wasn't 100% sure until I had seen it a few times.
so what you say, you had to drive a few times past the spot, and then after a few times, you remembered it.
Yes, my lady.
So the first time you did not remember it.
I knew it was in that vicinity. I could not be specific until I had seen it again, my lady.
So what caused you to remember is when you looked more and more at the spot, it then came back to your memory.
Yes, as I had seen it then on the way down, on the way back, on the way down, and then again on the way back.
So it's 4 times.
Twice in either direction.
So in the 4th time you remember it now.
Yes. And the second time, actually, it's not the 4th time. Because there and back would be 1 time, there and back again would be the 2nd time.
But driving past the spot, that would be the 4th time. Because when you drive there,
both
you
directions,
drive back,
yes.
it's the 4th time. At the scene where you were stopped, where you say that was the handling of Mr. Pistorius' firearm, are you sure that you found the bullet?
Absolutely.
And before you answer, can you remember a policeman putting his radio in with the aerial and digging the bullet out?
No, I had not seen that.
You have not seen that?
No, and I can tell you why, because at the time it was very tight and I'd cut my hand trying to get the bullet from the side.
You could not get it out, and the policeman then put the aerial of his radio in and he got it out. Because you could not put your hand in.
That's not correct.
You picked up the bullet.
I did, my lady.
How did it happen that you were outside the car?
Initially, the police officer, when he had stopped us, had please asked me to get out of the vehicle.
And where did you go to?
Towards the front right-hand side of the vehicle.
And how did you happen to get to the left of the vehicle at some stage?
After they had been chatting, I had walked round to the other side of the car.
Doing what there?
I had just gone around to make sure that everything was all okay, because they were arguing, and I said, we should, sorry, let me start that again. After the police officer and I had spoken for a while, after having given him my license, and then I can't remember what had happened 100% in the interim, but I had gone around a little bit later to try and get the bullet from inside the vehicle.
So you went around to the left side to get the bullet?
The passenger side of the vehicle, yes, my lady.
Why did you scrumple this ticket or the number plate?
Because the police officer or the Metro Police was taking his time to write it out.
I don't understand. If you could explain that, maybe.
He was taking longer. He was writing a line, then he was waiting, and then looking, and then writing a line and waiting and looking. It just took him some time to write out the ticket.
But what does that have to do with you scrumbling the ticket?
Because by then I would have liked to have just gotten going, and he was taking his time to write out the ticket.
Yes, I know it took his time, but why is that relevant in the way that you handle this ticket given to you by the policeman? That's what I don't understand.
What should I have done with the ticket?
Can you repeat that question and maybe answer it?
I had said to you, what should I have done with the ticket? I had the ticket in my possession, I crumpled it, and I'd thrown it on the passenger side.
What do you think you should have done with the ticket?
Kept it, which we did, because it was then given over to the dealership. The ticket was still in the vehicle. It was not discarded at any point. It was thrown on the floor in the vehicle.
In your evidence in chief, what was significant, Mr. Fresco, is this. You tell the court that you went to a house, something to do with Mr. Pistorius' firearm, but you weren't too sure what that was all about. And then the next part follows. From that house, we went towards, is it Apple Square?
Ethel Square, my lady.
Where was, in relation, on the back seat, where was Miss Taylor sitting?
I don't know, my lady.
Now, according to your version, and let me put it to you that it's denied that he fired a shot. First of all, if you want to respond to that. Mr. Pistorius will deny that he fired that shot.
That is incorrect, my lady.
Now, according to your version, he fires the shot. What did you say to him?
Apologies again, my lady, but I asked him if he's fucking mad.
And then after that?
He just laughed about it.
And then?
And then we carried on with my ear ringing and burning.
But did you at any time speak to him about it after that?
I don't recall, so no.
You just left it?
I did.
Now, have you since managed to recall what happened after having dinner at the Apple Center?
At Athol
Is
Square.
it Athol or Apple?
Athol.
Athol. Athol Square.
I do not.
Still a blank.
Still a blank, my lady.
Is it because you have heard about the golf and you're playing at St Andrews and you're concerned that you may compromise yourself from what you're saying?
No.
I take you to Tasha's. How did it happen that you handed your firearm to Mr. Pistorius?
As previously stated, he had requested to see the gun, and which I had then handed over to him.
And how far were your heads apart at the time when you handed the firearm to him, when you spoke to him, according to your version?
Within close proximity.
What is close proximity? Show the court, if you can show. That would be, looks like about 20 centimeters to me. Now 30. Would that be fair, my lady, about 30 centimeters?
Mr. Nell,
I would say about 30, my lady.
about 30, yes.
Thank you, my lady. Mr. Fresco, are you sure about this?
Yes, I am.
I tell you why. During the adjournment, we put a table together and we tried to get our heads to get that close, and it was not possible. So at some point, I'm going to ask you to demonstrate to the court how it's possible, when one is sitting on the left and one on the right, diagonally across him, to get their heads together like that. So, in view of that, are you still positive it was that close?
That's what I remember. I can't give you an exact specific figure. There were no measurements between our heads at the time, but it was close enough. As I'd said, if he was sitting on the couches, he was quite far back. He would have had to lean forward. I then leaned forward at the same time and handed it over.
Even if you cannot get that close,
I remember us being fairly close, my lady.
then you use the words, as far as I can remember, in your previous answer. What does that mean?
If my memory serves me correctly,
Yes.
that's what I remember, that I had moved forward, he had moved forward, and we were in close proximity of each other.
If I say to someone, if my memory serves me correct, I have some uncertainty, and say that's the best I can do for you.
I do remember us being very close, my lady.
But can you really remember how close?
Seeing that I do not have a ruler with me at that specific time, my lady, no. I cannot remember exactly in definition how close we were together.
I was not asking you in measurements. I was just asking to demonstrate. But what is interesting, Mr. Fresco, the moment I explained to you the demonstration, you followed an answer with, as far as I can remember. That's what is significant in your evidence.
That is my story, and I'm not changing that story, that we were within close proximity of each other.
That close proximity, I ask you, if you remember, also does not appear in your statement. Would you agree?
Could you repeat that, please?
That close proximity that you talk about does not appear in your statement when you went to Mr. Witz and Mr. Alexander to assist you.
As I said, I have not read my affidavit word for word on the paper for a fairly long time, but the only way he could have received the weapon from me under the table, he would have had to have moved forward. I had moved forward, and we had met.
Yes. You see, let me go back to the two previous points absent in your statement and this one that I asked you about. The other one was of significance, and that is that there was no mention about Mr. Pistorius asking you to take the blame. We've gone through that, you remember?
Yes, lady.
And you know why this is significant? Let me explain to you.
Ms. Roux, shouldn't the statement be with the witness?
I can do it. I'm not going back to the statement again, but it was admitted that it's not there. So it won't help him in a sense that... But I can do it.
I disagree. I'm looking for the statement. It was never admitted it wasn't there. He said, I don't know. I haven't read my statement. If anything should be made of it, the statement should be before court. Otherwise, those questions not even worth asking. Because neither the court doesn't know if it's there. The witness doesn't. The two previous points, on the one point the witness indicated when we started cross-examination, it's not there. But for the rest, he said he hasn't read his statement.
Lady, I'm very happy to get this thing. The state could make it available, and I will see that copies be made quickly. There are marks, but I don't believe that the court will be influenced by underlining it. So, but let me develop the point, Mr. Fresco. And when you have your statement, you can read for yourself, unless Mr. Nell tells the court that it is in there. And it is this. At the bail application, there was a suggestion that Mr. Pistorius asked someone to take the blame. So what I put to you, your statement was settled on the 10th of June 2013, as you will see now. If you were satisfied that that's the truth, and you do a 204 statement, that's one point that will be and would have been in your statement. Do you agree?
Could you please explain that again or repeat that to me?
That was an important point, and you sit with an experienced advocate and an attorney, and your statement's not made immediately. It's made on 10 June 2013. Where you can sit back and carefully consider the events, particularly in view of the fact that it's a statement in terms of Section 204 where you may incriminate yourself. So it's a statement where you would be very meticulous. What I want to know from you, that you forget it at that time, the fact that you were asked to take the blame.
I did not forget that.
Did you deliberately withhold the information?
I did not deliberately withhold any information.
Could you give any explanation, assuming just for a moment, because the statements will be here and you have one in front of you, why it would not be in your statement?
I don't know.
Now, what exactly did you say to Mr. Pistorius when you handed the firearm to him?
While leaning in towards each other, I said to him, "There's one up," as previously stated.
What did he say to you in response to that?
Okay.
Did he say okay?
Yes, he did.
I'm sorry, I could not hear that.
Yes, he did.
You see, that is evidence of great significance. We'll go to your statement now, but let me take you to your evidence this far. I asked you about it, and the state asked you about this incident. One thing that was absolutely absent was Mr. Pistorius responding to what you've said and saying to you, okay. That's the first time you introduce it now. What do you say today?
You had asked me if he had said anything. No one had asked me this before. You have just asked me this, and once asked, I had answered.
But, Mr. Fresco, it's not that easy. We are all dependent on your evidence to tell us the whole truth. And you talk about that incident. It's what you leave out that's important. And that was left out. In main evidence, in your statement, I put it to you, and even in the earlier cross-examination. There was no reference to it. It's the first time that this comes out. Can you explain that?
I can't.
Then you added something in your evidence. About the magazine. What was that?
I had basically said that once he had taken the weapon from me, I had seen a movement that he had made, supposed to have been clearing the weapon of the one bullet in the chamber. What he had obviously not done is he didn't check that the magazine was still in, which would have then meant that he cycled the bullet out of the chamber and another one from the magazine back into the chamber, making the gun ready to fire.
No, you said something about you wanting to talk about the magazine. Can you remember that?
I had, and not specifically, but I do remember talking something earlier about the magazine.
Yes, in court.
Specifically did.
What was it in court that you said with reference to the magazine?
If I remember correctly, I'd said I wanted to have told him or have said to him that the magazine is still in. But being someone who I thought was very competent with a weapon, I thought he would have checked that, my lady.
My lady, may I make available the copies of the statements? I think it should be Exhibit W, if I'm not mistaken, my lady.
Thank you.
I don't understand that, Mr. Fresco. There was no rush. It was really easy to say to Mr. Pistorius, listen, the magazine is in. You agree?
I do.
You know where this comes from, actually, this your reference to the magazine, Mr. Fresco? It comes from the fact that it was put to Mr. Lerena that after the shot had gone off, Mr. Oscar Pistorius was upset. And one of the reasons was that you handed to him a gun with a magazine on without telling him that the magazine is in. That's where it comes from. Do you agree?
Why would I walk around with a weapon without a magazine in it, my lady?
Can you explain that question that you asked?
Why would I walk around with a weapon without a magazine in it?
I'm not talking about walking around, Mr. Fresco. I'm talking about you handing the firearm over to Mr. Pistorius, and I'm putting something else to you. What I'm putting to you is in Mr. Lerina's evidence. What was said and what was put to Mr. Lerina is that Mr. Pistorius was upset because you'd failed to tell him that the magazine was in. That is where your evidence today comes from. That you wanted to tell him, but you did not tell him about the magazine. What do you say to that?
I did not tell him at the time, but as I had said earlier, being someone who I thought being competent with a weapon, I would have most definitely have checked if the magazine was still in the weapon.
But then I failed to understand the relevance of the magazine. All you could have said, I passed him the firearm and I believed he was competent. Why the reference to the magazine? What you wanted to tell him and seemingly did not have time to do. That's what I'm trying to find out.
Because if it was someone else that may have handed it to me, if the roles were reversed, I would have checked specifically to make sure if there was a magazine inserted into the weapon at the specific time that the weapon was handed over before clearing the weapon.
But
lady,
my understanding is you wanted to tell him that a magazine was in, but there was some time constraint. Not so?
Wouldn't say there was a time constraint. It was as he had moved back and then I had moved back.
Why did you not tell him then?
I don't know.
No, but if you wanted to tell him that, that was the perfect opportunity. If it's true what you're saying, of course.
Having thought again of him being competent, I thought he would have checked that before recycling the weapon. So, cycling the weapon, my lady.
So are you saying that in fact you wanted to tell him that? There was some time constraint, but then when you sat back, you thought about it again, and because you believed he was competent, you decided not to say anything about the magazine. Would that be a fair summary of your evidence?
Yes, my lady.
So must I understand that immediately after you handed the firearm to him, you thought about the magazine but decided not to tell him?
Yes, my lady.
And you know Mr. Pistorius was upset about the fact that you did not tell him about the magazine that was in.
No, I did not know.
What did he say to you?
He said nothing to me. We were all in shock about what had just happened.
Well, let the shock pass. What did he then say to you? There was this bang, and now what did he say to you?
He had please asked me, because of the media hype around him at the time, please can you take the rap for it?
What?
Take the blame for it.
Did he not say a word that someone could be heard? And why did you give him a firearm with the magazine in?
I don't remember him saying anything like that.
So it's not that he did not say it, it's just that you don't remember it.
I don't remember him saying that to me. I did not hear that, my lady.
The last part I did not hear?
I did not hear that, my lady.
Well, there's a difference between don't remember him saying that and he did not say that.
I do not remember hearing him say that to me, my lady.
Is there uncertainty with your memory there?
No, there isn't, my lady.
Can you clearly remember what happened directly after the shooting?
I do indeed.
So what did Mr. Pistorius say to you?
After the noise had resumed, we had carried on chatting, and after he had asked me to please take the blame for it, I had said okay. Then Maria had come to the table, and then after that, a while later, Jason had come to the table, and after that, we had we had requested the bill after everyone had finished, and then we had left the restaurant, my lady. On the way out, Oscar apologizing to the owner again.
Again, when was the first time that he apologized?
Sorry, I think I'd worded that wrong, my lady. As seeing that I had apologized earlier.
It was not wrong.
My apologies, because I'd apologized to the owner's wife as well as the owner, and then against once we were leaving, and so did the accused at the same time that we were leaving, my lady.
But I want to put it to you that it was not wrong. He apologized previously to the owner, and when he paid, he apologized again, and he offered to pay for the damages.
I don't remember that. I had offered to pay for the damages with the owner afterwards.
If you say you don't remember, don't you remember him apologizing, offering to pay?
I don't, my lady.
Now, let's just get back after the shooting. You say you carried on chatting.
We did.
What was that all about? There's now a shot. There's now, I assume, the stunned silence. And then you carried on chatting.
Yes, we did.
About what?
I can't remember what we spoke about, my lady.
So when did this "please take the blame" version come in?
That happened just after the weapon was passed back to me, my lady.
So he gave you the weapon, and what did he say to you? If you just give me a minute, I just want to get your evidence in chief there. You would just bear with me. Yes? What did he say to you?
Sorry, can you repeat that again, please, lady?
I'm sorry, Mr. Fresco, I did not hear that.
Can you repeat that, please?
The question?
Yes, please.
Yes, what did Mr. Pistorius say to you?
He had asked me to please take the blame for it, as there was a lot of media hype around him at the time.
So he said to you, please take the blame because there's a lot of media hype around me.
Yes.
Were those the exact words?
I can't say verbatim, but it was pertaining to him being in the media spotlight.
So it was something about him being in the media spotlight and then wanting you to take the blame to do what?
To say that it was me that had discharged the firearm in a restaurant.
Did he say to you, Mr. Fresco, please, you must say that you discharged the firearm?
No, he did not say that, milady. He had requested me to take the blame for what had happened.
Did he request you to take the blame for the shot going off or for handing him the firearm with the magazine in?
For the shot going off.
Did he say that?
Could not have been for anything else.
No, my question is, did he say that? Take the blame for the shot going off?
No, not in those words, he didn't.
Or did he just say, there's media hype around me, please take the blame?
Yes, he did.
Is that all? In similar words?
Yes.
And what did you say to him?
I said, I will.
And when did you think of the story about the firearm falling out of your shorts?
In between the owner's wife coming to the table, and after that, then the owner had come to the table.
Now, of course, if you're wrong, Mr. Fresco, that it was first Mr. Lupus coming to you, then your version does not make sense that you could think of that in between.
I remember Mr. Lupus's wife coming to me first, and then someone else after, and then Jason Lupus coming to me after that.
Yes. What did she say to you?
She goes, what just happened? Or what happened?
So did she ask you about the noise?
She had come straight to the table.
How long after this noise?
I can't remember an exact time period. It must have been a minute or so.
Too quick for you to dream up a story?
I can't remember a specific time period of how long it took.
And how long after that did Mr. Lupus come?
I don't know. It was a while after that. I can't give you an exact time period.
Now, you have your statement exhibit W, if I'm correct. W, my lady. Can you look at it? I'm going to the second page, paragraph 14. Could you read?
I was seated diagonally opposite Oscar.
Yes.
Oscar asked me to pass him my firearm. I handed him the firearm under the table, telling him that there was one up.
Where's the movement of the heads? Because you sit now with an experienced advocate, an experienced attorney, to say to them, let me explain to you how it happened. Because you said you weren't too sure if that's in your statement.
Would you like me to show you? Yes, as I just shown you now.
Is that the only thing that you told them?
Having gone.
I'm talking about your statement, Mr. Fresco.
I've just read to the end of number 15.
Yes. And
stating him, telling that there was one up.
And then after that, what, 16?
After he had taken the firearm, I saw him doing something to the firearm which I thought looked like clearing it. I was concerned at this, but before I could do anything, a shot went off. But fortunately, nobody was badly injured. He immediately handed the firearm back to me, which I reholstered.
Go on, because I'm looking now for the blame.
One of our party was, however, struck in the leg by shrapnel.
And then paragraph 19.
Within seconds of the shot, hush fell over the restaurant, and I told our party to continue as if nothing had happened.
So let's stop there. So there was a hush, and then you spoke. I told our party to continue as if nothing had happened. So you took the lead there.
I did.
So there you decided, let's just pretend there was nothing. Guys around the table, please carry on with a normal conversation as if nothing had happened. Was that your approach?
It was. I didn't want to bring to the light what had just happened in the packed or crowded restaurant.
I'm sorry, I could not hear that, Mr. Fresco.
I didn't want to bring to attention to the table what had just happened, hoping the majority of the people may have thought it could have been a gas explosion or something in the kitchen of Tasha's, which we were sitting right next to.
So what we do know that you took the lead there to say, guys, carry on as if nothing had happened. That's the words that you remember on 10 June 2013. Is that correct?
Yes.
Those are the words.
Yes.
And then after that,
the owner's wife approached, and I apologized to her.
Sorry, first, the last sentence of paragraph 19.
The conversation and normal restaurant noise soon resumed.
Now, I don't see that apart from you saying, I told our party to continue as if nothing had happened. What I don't see there is the blame. You agree?
Because there was still silence in the restaurant.
What does that mean, Mr. Fresco?
As I just said, the restaurant was dead silent.
Where is the blame now?
After the noise resumed.
Let's read it to see if we can force it in there. The conversation and normal restaurant noise soon resumed. A conversation. You say it was part of that conversation.
The conversations lead into each other. Conversations lead into each other.
Yes.
We could have been talking, as I said, once the noise had resumed and everything else, we had carried on talking.
Yes, but when was it now that Mr. Pistorius asked you to take the blame? If you look at that paragraph in relation to that paragraph 19, when was that? I see there's a silence by you.
So I can't remember exactly now when he had asked me. There was a statement that he had asked me. I can't remember exactly when it happened.
You can't remember now exactly when he asked you.
I can't remember if it was before Maria having arrived at the table, or in between Maria and Jason arriving, or after Jason arriving and then having us asking for the bill and leaving. I can't remember when that happened.
So it could have happened on one of three occasions. Just repeat that again, just for my own benefit, please. The first one was when?
It could have happened either after the noise in the restaurant resumed and we started talking again, or it could have happened after Maria had come, or it could have happened after Jason had come and gone. Milady.
Well, let's look at it. If it happened after Maria had come, if that is Miss Lucas, would that then explain, according to your version, why you apologized to her without taking the blame, on your version?
Please, can you repeat that?
Well, let me help you first, and then I'll repeat the question I undertake. Go to paragraph 20. Read that.
The owner's wife approached and I apologized to her for the incident.
So if you say it could have happened, and I'm just working with that one case scenario, if you've given the first and then the second one, it could have happened after the owner's wife had left because you apologized to her. She's leaving now, and that is the husband's coming later. It could have happened then, according to your version.
As I had said, it could have happened on 3 different occasions, milady. I can't be exactly sure on which of those it happened, but it most definitely happened while we were sitting before having left the restaurant, milady.
It could even have happened after Mr. Lupus had come to the table.
It could have, yes, milady.
You see, will you agree that, Mr. Fresco, that you have a great uncertainty about this blaming on what was exactly said and when it happened, when you were requested to do that?
I have uncertainty of the specific time that it happened. I don't have any uncertainty that it happened, milady.
And you also have an uncertainty of what was really said, or not?
No, I remember him having said that please take the blame or the rap for this, as there's too much media hype around him.
Please take the blame for what, Mr. Fresco?
Please take the blame for this.
Did he say for this?
Yes, having what he had just done or what had just happened.
So did he say, please take the blame for what has just happened, or for what I have done? Which one?
Verbatim, I can't remember. But it was definitely pertaining to him having shot in the restaurant.
Yes. And then 21, her husband later also approached and I apologized to him too. On our way out, Oscar apologized to him. We then left. Would that be correct?
Yes, milady.
Where is this make-up story that you told him about the firearm falling from your, I'm not sure, shorts or tracksuit pants? I'm not sure.
Shorts. It was the middle of summer. There wouldn't have been a need to wear tracksuit pants in summer.
There was a reason why I asked it, because the previous witnesses referred to tracksuit pants.
I saw that, and I never ever wear tracksuit pants unless I'm going to gym.
What do you mean you saw that, Mr. Fresco?
It's been on Twitter.
So you've been following that part of the evidence?
There are bits and pieces that I see. But this has definitely got it's got nothing to do with whether I was wearing shorts or tracksuit pants. It's stuff that's been in the media, on the news. Doesn't matter where you look, where you turn, where you go, what you listen to, what you watch. It's all over the media, my lady. If I'm watching the news, it's all over the news. If I'm listening to the radio, it's all over the radio.
I understand that, Mr. Fresco. I'm not blaming you for that. I just need to know that you followed the proceedings.
Not entirely, no.
I understand not entirely, but at least when it was relevant to your evidence, you must have followed that, in all fairness.
From what there have been plenty of people that have said to me, your name's being mentioned, your name's being mentioned, your name's been mentioned on numerous occasions.
Yes.
I would have liked to know what was said.
I understand that, and that's why you made it your case to find out what was said. But I understand that. Is my understanding correct?
Yes, it is, my lady.
That Mr. Pistorius, if you could just explain this movement when you handed a gun to you, sitting diagonally across you.
Yes.
If you could just explain that movement, because I'm interested in how his head could move that far across. And I've told you we tried that and could not get close to what you demonstrated. So if you can just explain.
Having leaned forward and passed the weapon underneath the table.
But if you lean forward, I'm watching you, you don't go forward a lot. You can do it again, lean forward. Where are you? Where's your head in relation to the bench there when you lean forward? Can you tell the court?
It's hanging over the bench.
Is it in line with the side of the bench? You can do it again.
No, it's over the bench.
How far? Show the court with your hand. It's easy. Just do it again, and you can show. Is it how far?
I would probably say about so much over the table. Again, the same distance as you asked me earlier.
I understand, about the 30 centimeters.
Joined with his, however far he had come over, whether it's been 30 centimeters or so, 60 centimeters over the table.
So we have a combined 60 centimeters.
Yes.
That's the point I was making.
As I was saying earlier, milady, I'm not a judge of distance, but like I said, he had most definitely heard me as I had heard him say I'd asked him.
That I was.
Capitec Bank is asking why to simplify banking. Do you know what your bank costs are?
I don't know, but I know it's too much.
65 rand?
Between 200 and 250.
I don't, but I know it's too much.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Why don't you switch banks?
To go to Fort Table 1139, if they can put that on the screen. Do you agree that there were two tables joined?
Yes, I do.
And you were sitting, I can't see the numbers in this photo. Maybe just the next photo will show the numbers of the one before.
Number 4 is where I was sitting.
Can you see the distance?
Yes,
I'm
I
trying
can.
to get your 30 centimeters apart. You agree that cannot be?
I can get close enough to hear what he's saying.
That's something else. If it's close enough, I'm talking about your.
Well, seeing that you put me on the spot of an exact defined space
Yes.
or measure.
You see, what was also interesting at this point in time was Mr. Lerena gave evidence. And he was specifically asked whether because of the noise in the restaurant, that it could be that Mr. Pistorius did not hear what you were saying, because Mr. Pistorius was sitting farther away from you than Mr. Lerena. You understand what I say?
Yes, I do.
And you know what he did not say to this court, Mr. Lerena? What he did not say is, he said, my lady, in fact, let me tell you why this is not true what Mr. Pistorius is saying. Because I saw the two of them, the heads moving to be in close proximity. That's totally absent in this evidence. He rather agreed to that possibility. He did not say that it could not be because he saw your heads moving as explained by you. It's not in his evidence. And that was the perfect opportunity to say that. You understand that?
I do. That was his statement, though.
I'm reminded, I didn't pick it up, that you say that you were sitting right next to the kitchen.
I had said earlier that we're sitting closest to the kitchen at the back corner. That's why I'd said, again, I'd said earlier that that's why it may have been a possibility that other people in the restaurant may have thought it could have been a gas explosion.
When Mr. Pistorius asked to see your firearm, did you speak to him apart from saying one up?
No. The lady, he had asked me for the weapon and I passed it over to him.
Did you not use the word okay? When he asked you, say okay.
I may have.
Because I'm trying to...
As the same as you said to me, how come he said okay after I told him that there's one up?
So was there an okay and an okay?
As I said.
Okay from you and an okay from Mr. Pistorius?
That I was passing my weapon over to him, yes. And that he had heard that there was one up, yes.
Who paid the bill?
I don't know, my lady. I really don't know that. Oscar was a big fan of normally paying for bills if we had gone out for dinner or lunches or anything along those lines. He normally picked up the tab. Not expected, but he had done that.
Were you not present when he paid for the bill? Because that will be his evidence that he paid.
I was present, but I can't remember who had paid for the bill, as there were 4 of us there, not just 2 of us at the table.
Did he pay for the bill at the table, or did he pay when he walked out?
I don't know. Normally they bring the bill to the table if you ask for the bill.
Maybe would it be an opportune time? It's 3 o'clock.
We'll adjourn until tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning.
Just need to read.